Welcome to Vanguard, where humans aren't the underdogs. We're the endgame. Enjoy the journey. The bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable was quiet in the way only warships on long patrol ever were. Not silent, but filled with the constant, living hum of machinery in disciplined motion. Consoles glowed softly beneath the hands of officers who had performed these same motions thousands of times before. Outside the armored viewports, stars drifted past like cold, distant embers scattered across an endless black sea. For 6 weeks, the 3rd Expeditionary Force had been mapping the ragged edge of human-explored space. It was important work, but uneventful. Charting gravitational anomalies, marking safe jump corridors, watching for threats that never came. The kind of assignment that tested patience more than courage. Admiral Chenny Lin stood at the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind her back as she studied the star charts floating in holographic projection before her. Gray threaded through the black of her hair, and her face carried the quiet gravity of someone who had spent a lifetime watching young people march into danger. She had fought in the Proxima Wars. She had seen entire fleets vanish in fire. The galaxy no longer impressed her easily. "Status," she said. "All systems nominal, Admiral," Commander Sarah Hayes replied from her station. "No anomalies in the last sweep. Destroyers maintaining formation. Nightfall reports all fighter squadrons secured and on standby. Routine, safe, predictable. The kind of patrol young officers hated and veterans secretly cherished." At the communications station, Lieutenant Marcus Webb rotated frequencies with mechanical precision, eyes half-focused as streams of meaningless static and automated signals scrolled past his display. Mining beacons, commercial traffic pings, navigation buoys. The background noise of a civilization still tiny compared to the scale of the stars. 3 hours into his shift, something changed. It was faint at first, just a ripple of irregular signal buried beneath layers of cosmic interference. Webb frowned, fingers slowing. He isolated the waveform, boosting the gain, cleaned the noise. What came through the speakers was not language. It was panic. A cascading series of sharp, uneven sounds burst from the console, layered with distant explosions and the unmistakable whine of energy weapons tearing through shields. The noise was chaotic, desperate, alive with terror. Webb straightened instantly. "Admiral," he said, voice tight, "I'm picking up a distress transmission. It's not in any format I recognize, definitely not human." Chen turned from the star charts and crossed the bridge in 3 long strides. "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled as Webb routed the signal across the command deck. The alien sounds echoed through the room, ragged, broken, rising and falling in patterns that carried unmistakable fear, even without translation. Behind the frantic vocalizations came the thudding of impacts, the hiss of failing shields, the deep, concussive thunder of weapons fire. Everyone on the bridge felt it. "That's a civilian distress call," Chen said quietly. "Even if I don't understand a word of it." Commander Hayes moved closer, eyes locked on the scrolling signal data. "Admiral, linguistics AI is already working. It's building a translation matrix from signal structure and repetition patterns." Seconds stretched. Then the AI began to speak in halting fragments. "We are under attack. Shields failing. Civilian convoy. Please, anyone, help." The words hit the bridge like gravity. "Location?" Chen asked. "Kepler 442 system," Webb replied. 3 hours away at maximum burn. No other fleet assets within 2 days. Chen's jaw tightened. The bridge fell silent as the implications settled in. Whoever was out there, whatever these unknown civilians were, had no one else coming. Commander Hayes broke the quiet. "Admiral, regulations are clear. We are not authorized to interfere in conflicts involving non-human species unless direct human interests are threatened. We're required to report the situation to Fleet Command and await orders." Chen did not answer immediately. Her gaze lingered on the hologram showing the blinking coordinates of the distress signal. Small, fragile, and far away. By the time Command debates this, Chen said at last, those ships will be wreckage. Possibly, Hayes admitted, but we don't know who's attacking them. This could be a lawful enforcement action by a recognized power. If we intervene blindly, Commander, Chen interrupted, her voice calm but edged with steel. Does that sound like law enforcement to you? The speakers chose that moment to release another burst of alien cries, high and shuddering, followed by the thunderous roar of an explosion so close it distorted the transmission. Hayes said nothing. Chen turned and faced the bridge crew. Dozens of eyes met hers. Veterans, young officers, pilots, engineers. Every one of them understood what was happening now. Every one of them knew what the regulations said, and every one of them felt the same unspoken question hanging in the air. If we turn away, what does that make us? We didn't come out here just to draw maps, Chen said. We came to represent humanity among the stars. And the very first thing the stars ask of us is whether we're willing to listen when someone is begging for their life. A beat of silence. Helm, she said. Yes, Admiral. Set course for Kepler 442, maximum speed. The bridge seemed to exhale as one. All hands, Chen continued, her voice now amplified across the ship. This is the Admiral. We are responding to a civilian distress call. All vessels of the 3rd Expeditionary Force will shift to combat readiness. I don't know what we'll find when we arrive, but I know this. If there are innocent lives in danger, we will not leave them behind. Red alert lights ignited across the bridge. Alarms began to sound throughout the Indomitable, rippling down its kilometers of armored corridors like a heartbeat accelerating toward violence. Engineers drove reactors toward combat output. Weapons crews flooded into turrets and railgun chambers. Fighter pilots sprinted for launch bays. The quiet routine of patrol was torn away in seconds, replaced by controlled urgency. The 3rd Expeditionary Force turned as one, 7 warships aligning toward a single point of distant light. Within minutes, the fleet vanished into faster than light. As the jump unfolded, Commander Hayes approached Chen in a low-voiced exchange meant only for the two of them. You realize Fleet Command may court-martial you for this. I know, Chen replied, and if this turns out to be a trap, then we handle it. Hayes studied her for a long moment. You're betting humanity's first true contact with another species on a moral impulse. Chen did not look away from the stars. No, I'm betting it on what kind of species we want to be when the galaxy finally notices us. 3 hours later, real space slammed back into existence. The Kepler 442 system bloomed across the tactical display, and so did the battlefield. 3 massive alien transports drifted near the system's inner orbit, their hulls scorched and buckled, shield signatures flickering weakly like dying candles. Around them swarmed 40 hostile vessels in loose, predatory formations. Sleek, jagged, aggressive. They weren't attacking to destroy quickly. They were circling, playing. 40 hostile contacts, Lieutenant Commander Park reported. Weapons hot, energy signatures consistent with pirate-grade armaments. They're savoring it, Chen murmured, like wolves with a wounded herd. The translator AI finally stabilized enough to identify the distress callers. Species identification confirmed, Webb said. They call themselves the Valoran Concord. Chen watched the tactical projection of the transports, watched the shields fail in real time as another hostile volley tore into them. Then today, she said softly, the Valoran learned something new about the universe. She straightened. All ships, Admiral Chen said across the fleet-wide channel. You are cleared to engage. Target hostile vessels only. Priority is the protection of civilian transports. We fire to end this, clean and final. The railguns of the Indomitable began to spin. The Indomitable's main railgun finished charging with a sound that was felt more than heard, a deep vibration that traveled through the deck plating and into the bones of every crew member on board. Across the formation, the other human warships followed suit. Power surged into weapons systems that had not tasted real combat in weeks. Admiral Chen stood rigid at the center of the bridge, her eyes locked on the tactical projection. 40 hostile ships danced around the 3 crippled Valoran transports, their movements erratic and taunting. Each pass stripped more shielding, carved deeper scars into already failing hulls. "They're playing with them," Commander Hayes said quietly. "They're not even trying to finish them quickly." Chen's voice was ice. "Predators rarely do." "Communications to hostile fleet?" Hayes asked. Chen nodded. "Open all frequencies. Translate into whatever passes for a common trade tongue out here." Lieutenant Webb's hands flew over his console. A moment later, he looked up. "Channel open, Admiral." Chen stepped forward slightly, her image now broadcast across open space. "This is Admiral Chenny Lin of the United Earth Fleet," she said. "You are engaging civilian vessels. Disengage immediately and withdraw from this system. If you do not comply, we will use force." For 2 seconds, there was nothing but static. Then the reply came. The voice that answered was harsh and layered, as if multiple throats were speaking at once. The translator rendered it into coarse, guttural words. "Foolish mammals. These ships belong to the Zathari. Their cargo belongs to the Zathari. You have 7 vessels. We have 40. Leave now or be erased with them." A burst of alien laughter followed before the channel cut dead. On the bridge of the Indomitable, no one spoke. Chen looked slowly around at her crew. Veteran officers, young pilots, men and women who had trained for the worst the galaxy could offer, and who now stood on the edge of humanity's first true interstellar war. "All ships," Chen said, her voice steady and unshaken. "We gave them a chance. Weapons free. Show them why they should have taken it." The Indomitable fired. The tungsten slug left the railgun at a significant fraction of light speed, compressing space itself around its path. There was no elegant flash of energy, no dramatic bloom, just raw, unstoppable kinetic force. One moment, a Zathari raider existed. The next, it was a rapidly expanding sphere of superheated debris. The explosion rippled through the pirate formation like a physical blow. Sensors across the Zathari fleet lagged seconds behind reality, struggling to even register what had happened. Then the rest of the 3rd Expeditionary Force spoke as one. Thunder, Relentless, and Striker unleashed coordinated plasma lance salvos. Brilliant spears of contained stellar fury tore across space, punching through pirate shields as though they were vapor. 3 more hostile vessels died in seconds, their hulls slashed open, reactor cores rupturing in cascading detonations. "Enemy formation destabilizing," Park reported calmly. They weren't expecting this level of firepower. "Few ever do," Chen replied. The Zathari responded with chaos. Energy beams erupted from dozens of pirate ships at once, filling space with multicolored streams of destructive light. The first volleys struck the Indomitable's shields in overlapping waves, then dissipated harmlessly, absorbed by defensive systems forged in the brutal crucible of the Proxima Wars. "Shields holding at 98%, Park said. "Minimal power fluctuation." Chen barely acknowledged it. "Target hostile vessels closest to the Valoran transports. I want no more fire landing on those civilians." The 2 frigates, Phantom and Inspector, surged forward on maneuvering thrusters that burned like white-hot knives through vacuum. Smaller than the destroyers, faster and sharper, they cut straight into the pirate swarm. Their weapons didn't aim for reactors. They aimed for engines. One by one, Zathari ships began to lose maneuverability, thrusters torn away, propulsion nodes crippled, steering arrays reduced to scrap. Pirate vessels spun helplessly, drifting into collision courses with one another as their formation completely collapsed. "Launch fighters," Chen ordered. The stealth carrier Nightfall, which had remained silent and watchful at the rear of the formation, opened its vast hangar bays. Squadrons of human fighters poured into space in tight, disciplined waves, sleek, predatory silhouettes streaking toward the enemy. Inside the cockpit of Alpha 1, Commander Lisa Rodriguez felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as her fighter burst into open space. Enemy contacts filled her visor in a rapidly updating lattice of red threat markers. "So this is first contact," she muttered. "Alpha Squadron," she said aloud, her voice perfectly calm. "Engage at will. Keep them off the civilians." The fighters hit the Zathari formation like a swarm of hornets. Missiles streaked outward in spiraling trails, each warhead guided by adaptive AI, capable of recalculating intercept paths thousands of times per second. Pirate point defense grids flared desperately, but human munitions were too fast, too intelligent. Explosions blossomed across hostile hulls in rapid succession. Rodriguez banked hard, pulling through a turn that would have crushed an unaugmented body. Her targeting reticle locked onto a fleeing Zathari cruiser. She exhaled once. Fox 3. The missile launched and immediately began weaving through streams of enemy fire. Seconds later, it impacted the cruiser's rear quarter. The ship split in two. "Splash 1, Rodriguez reported, moving to next target. On the Valorant transports, terrified crews watched through cracked viewports as the battle unfolded around them, with a scale and ferocity they could barely comprehend. The attackers who had hunted them moments before were now dying in waves, ripped apart by invisible forces, slammed into vapor by weapons that did not glow or hiss, but simply erased. This is impossible," one Valoran whispered through trembling mandibles. "They fight like gods," another said. On the Indomitable's bridge, the tactical display shifted rapidly in humanity's favor. "Enemy strength down by 50%, Park reported. Remaining Zathari vessels attempting coordinated retreat. Chen's eyes narrowed. "Negative. They don't get to leave." Thunder and Striker surged forward on full burn, their superior engines devouring the distance between them and the fleeing raiders. Railguns thundered again and again. Tungsten slugs punched through pirate hulls from stern to bow, carrying enough residual energy to detonate ships even when they missed core systems. Frigate teams closed in on disabled targets, shredding weapons arrays with surgical precision. Any Zathari ship that still attempted to resist was annihilated without ceremony. Within minutes, the battle was effectively over. "Enemy count reduced to 7 vessels, Park said. "They are broadcasting surrender codes." "Accept their surrender," Chen replied. "Disable weapons and engines only. No executions." There was a pause. "Confirmed, Admiral. Hostile resistance ceasing." Silence slowly returned to space. The burning wreckage of 33 Zathari ships drifted across the battlefield in expanding clouds of debris and frozen fire. The 3 Valoran transports remained intact, though battered, scarred but alive. "Human casualties?" Chen asked. "None," Hayes replied. "Not a single confirmed loss." Chen allowed herself exactly one breath of relief. "Open a channel to the Valoran convoy," she said. "All frequencies." Webb complied. For several seconds, there was no response. Then the alien voice returned, no longer frantic, but stunned, fragile, and disbelieving. "We are safe?" the translator rendered softly. "Yes," Chen said. "You are safe. For now and for as long as we are here." There was silence on the channel. Then, "No one has ever come for us before." The words struck the bridge like a physical impact. Chen closed her eyes briefly. "We're here now," she said, "far beyond the battlefield, in the dark spaces where the Zathari warlords ruled their fractured domains." The first survivor signals began to race ahead of the fleeing remnants. Data packages filled with images of impossible weapons, of ships erased in single shots, of a fleet that had emerged from nowhere and shattered 40 raiders in minutes. On an asteroid fortress carved from raw stone and rage, Warlord Keisha, the Render, watched the footage in silence. Again and again, his multiple eyes narrowed with each replay, as Zathari warriors were annihilated by weapons they could not comprehend. "They were hunted," Keisha growled, "like prey." His second-in-command shifted uneasily. "My lord, they destroyed us without losses. Their technology is beyond ours." Perhaps we should reconsider. Keisha spun and struck him with enough force to send him crashing into a wall. Reconsider? Keisha snarled. They humiliated us in front of the entire region. The Zari do not retreat from humiliation. We erase it. He turned back to the projection of human warships, moving with perfect, merciless order. They care about civilians, Keisha said slowly. That is their weakness, and I will carve it open. The battlefield had barely cooled when the first human shuttles detached from the Indomitable and glided toward the wounded Valorant transports. Scars of battle still glowed faintly along alien hull plating, molten metal freezing into twisted veins as emergency force fields struggled to contain atmosphere leaks. Admiral Chen stood inside the lead shuttle, surrounded by a small, carefully chosen team. Two Marines in powered armor flanked the airlock, silent and immovable as statues. Behind them stood Dr. Maya Patel, already reviewing scrolling data on her medical scanner, while two engineering specialists checked tool harnesses and repair drones. Lieutenant Webb stood near the comm console, his role as translator now more crucial than ever. The shuttle docked with the largest Valoran vessel, the Harmonious Dawn, with a soft magnetic clang. For a moment, nothing happened. No sounds came through the bulkheads, no signs of movement. Chen waited. At last, the inner airlock door slid open. The first beings humanity ever met face to face emerged from the fog of recycled air and emergency lighting. The Valorans were unlike anything in human biological records. They stood on four powerful, jointed legs, their lower bodies broad and stable, covered in iridescent, pearl-like scales that shifted color with every movement. Their upper torsos rose gracefully from that foundation, vaguely humanoid in shape, but elongated, slender, and crowned by narrow heads with luminous compound eyes. Delicate mandibles framed their mouths, clicking softly as they spoke to one another in low, harmonic tones. They were beautiful in a way that unsettled the human brain. Too symmetrical, too fluid, too alien to be comfortably familiar. 5 of them waited in the docking bay. The one at the front wore flowing robes threaded with faintly glowing patterns. As she stepped forward, the colors of her scales shifted from pale silver to deep violet. "I am Choir Master Belnara," Webb translated, as the layered voice filled the space like a chord struck on living instruments. "Captain of the Harmonious Dawn, we welcome you aboard. Saviors from Earth." Admiral Chen inclined her head in a small, deliberate bow. "I am Admiral Chenny Lin of the United Earth Fleet. We are honored to meet you, Choir Master." The mandibles clicked again, this time in a faster, trembling rhythm. "You came when all others did not." Chen felt the weight of those words settle in her chest. "Are your people safe?" she asked. Velnara hesitated. The glowing patterns along her robes dimmed slightly. "We have dead, 17, wounded beyond count. Without your intervention, we would all be gone. Or taken." She gestured with one slender, many-jointed hand toward the darkened corridors beyond the docking bay. Chen turned to Dr. Patel. "Doctor, you're up." Dr. Patel stepped forward immediately, her scanner activating in a soft chorus of light. A second Valoran, marked with pale blue bands along the thorax, indicating medical role, according to the translator, approached nervously. The two healers regarded one another across the species divide for a silent moment, then began communicating through gestures, data pulses, and translated fragments. Chen watched as her medical officer disappeared deeper into the alien ship, with wounded civilians following behind, supported on trembling limbs. "Engineers," Chen said quietly. The two human specialists moved out at once, deploying swarms of repair drones that fanned into the damaged compartments, sealing breaches, reinforcing structural supports, stabilizing power grids. Order flowed into chaos. For the first time since the attack began, the Harmonious Dawn felt like a ship again, instead of a dying thing. Hours passed in a blur of controlled urgency. Human medics worked alongside Valoran healers in improvised triage wards where alien blood shimmered with strange copper-blue hues under sterile lighting. Dr. Patel adjusted human trauma protocols on the fly, rewriting dosage algorithms, modifying surgical tools to accommodate unfamiliar physiologies. Some patients lived, some did not. When one Valoran child succumbed quietly despite every effort, Dr. Patel stood motionless for several seconds before she allowed herself to move again. The child's parents sang softly over the small, still body, a trembling, layered harmony that echoed through the medical bay long after they were led away. Chen felt every death like a personal failure. Later, in the observation lounge of the Harmonious Dawn, Chen sat across from Choir Master Velnara as the ship drifted under escort. The vast, transparent chamber revealed the silent ballet of human warships outside, sentinels in the void. "You fight like nothing we have ever seen," Velnara said. Her scales rippled with faint streaks of gold and blue. Awe, fear, gratitude, all translated imperfectly through shifting color. "Your attackers were pirates," Chen said, "the Zathari. How long have they been raiding your people?" Velnara's mandibles tightened. "Since before my grandmother's time. They come when they wish. We give what they demand. We bury our dead. That is how we have survived." Chen's voice hardened. "Why didn't the authorities intervene?" A pause. "Because we are weak." The word landed like a verdict. Velnara folded her hands together. "There are great powers in this region. The Trellan hegemony, the Morphidian Empire, the Crystalline Collective. They control trade routes, security corridors, the flow of weapons and information. To them, the Zathari are inconvenience, not threat enough to warrant full suppression." "And your people?" Chen asked. Velnara's scales darkened. "We are acceptable losses." Chen felt something cold coil in her gut. "How long have your people been among the stars?" she asked. "Nearly 3,000 of your years. And in all that time," Chen said slowly, "no one has come when you called for help?" Velnara met her gaze. "Never." Silence filled the observation lounge. Chen exhaled through her teeth. "Dr. Patel has informed me that the Zathari don't just steal cargo." "No," Velnara said quietly. "They take people." Chen closed her eyes. "They sell them," Velnara continued, "to mining worlds, to private collectors, to laboratories, to pleasure markets. There is a place in unclaimed space where they auction living beings as property. Some of those they take, we never hear of again." Chen's hand tightened slowly into a fist. "How many?" Chen asked. Velnara's voice softened. "Hundreds, over the centuries." Chen said nothing for a long time. "Your galaxy tolerates slavery," she finally said. Velnara's scales shifted in patterns Webb struggled to interpret. "Your words suggest outrage. Ours suggest resignation. That is the difference between your species and ours, Admiral." Chen stood and walked to the viewport, staring out at the distant blaze of human ships guarding fragile alien transports like armored angels. "No," Chen said. "The difference is that someone taught you that suffering is normal." Back aboard the Indomitable, Lieutenant Webb delivered his intelligence briefing in a hushed command room. "There are thousands of spacefaring species in this sector," he reported. "Most are grouped under a dozen major powers. The Zathari operate in the blind spots between those powers. Everyone knows what they do. No one spends the resources to stop them." "And the Trellan?" Chen asked. "Militaristic empire. Their philosophy is simple. Strength is legitimacy. The strong rule. The weak obey. Pirate activity doesn't threaten their dominance, so it's ignored." Chen's eyes narrowed. "And the Morphidians? They profit from stability. Pirates disrupt trade, but only at the edges. As long as major lanes remain secure, they tolerate a certain level of loss." "And the Crystalline Collective?" "A distributed intelligence, highly logical. They model outcomes, not morals." Chen said nothing. "So what happens now?" Hayes asked quietly. Chen turned back toward the starlit viewport. "Now the galaxy learns that one of its blind spots just became a line in the sand." Dr. Patel's final report came that evening. "All wounded Valorans are stable," she said. We saved 3 who would have died under their own medical capabilities. But there's more. Several former slaves escaped during the chaos. Zathari transport pods jettisoned them when they tried to flee. Chen's jaw tightened. Alive? Yes, traumatized, scarred. Some have neural implants for control. I'll need time to study them. Chen nodded slowly. You'll have it. As Chen dismissed her officers for the night, she stood alone in her command chamber, gazing at the endless dark between stars. Humanity had crossed into a larger universe, and it was uglier than anyone had warned them. Deep within the shattered territories claimed by the Zathari warlords, the news of defeat spread like fire through dry bone. Survivor ships limped back through unstable jump corridors, their hulls torn, their crews broken by terror rather than wounds. The data they carried was worse than any physical damage. Recordings of Zathari fleets erased by weapons that did not blaze like fire, but struck like judgment itself. Ships destroyed in single impacts, shields failing as if they had never existed. The Zathari had never faced such an enemy. On an asteroid fortress carved from volcanic stone and layered with crude but massive weapons emplacements, Warlord Keisha the Render stood before a panoramic projection of the battle. He watched again as his raiders died, again as the human fleet advanced with merciless order, again as his warriors fled. His many-clawed hands trembled, not with fear, but with fury. They humiliated us, he growled. They hunted us like animals. Around him, dozens of lesser warlords stood in silence. Scarred veterans, raiders bloated with stolen wealth, killers whose reputations were written in civilian blood. None dared speak first. They did not just kill my fleet, Keisha continued. They shattered the myth of Zathari dominance, and myth is power. One of the warlords finally stepped forward. Their strength is undeniable, Keisha. Their weapons, they are irrelevant, Keisha snapped. What matters is what they value. He struck the projection of the human fleet with a claw. They protect the weak. That is not a virtue, that is a flaw. And flaws are meant to be exploited. A murmur of interest rippled through the chamber. They saved civilians, Keisha said. They bled for strangers. That means they will bleed for their own. He turned toward his command throne. Send word to every warlord who still fears extinction. Offer them loot. Offer them vengeance. Offer them the bones of human worlds. Silence, then nods. And send word to the mercenary guilds, Keisha added. Tell them there is profit in breaking a rising power before it becomes unstoppable. The Zathari were not scholars. They were not builders, but they understood one truth with brutal clarity. To survive in a galaxy of predators, a new hunter must be killed before it learns how to hunt alone. The news reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral Chen stood before the United Earth Council in a chamber shaped like a ringed amphitheater of steel and light. Representatives from every contributing nation filled the tiers: politicians, military officials, industrial commanders. The fate of humanity now sat in their collective hands. Chen's voice was steady as she delivered her report. We encountered piracy, systemic slavery, and institutionalized indifference across multiple galactic powers. The Zathari raiders operate freely because the dominant empires consider their victims acceptable losses. We intervened. As a result, the Zathari have suffered a major blow to their power base. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. And now, Chen continued, they are retaliating. Admiral Harrison, head of Fleet Intelligence, activated the central hollow projector. Red symbols blossomed outward across a 3-dimensional star map. Confirmed Zathari mobilization, he said. We estimate at least 200 raider vessels forming under Keisha the Render's banner. An additional 50 ships from independent mercenary groups have accepted contracts. Trajectory analysis places their projected target as Arcturus Station. The council chamber fell silent. Arcturus Station was not just an outpost. It was one of humanity's primary shipyards, a trade hub, a logistical anchor for the entire frontier. A civilian population in the millions. Chairman David Okafor leaned forward slowly. This is a direct attack on humanity. Yes, Harrison confirmed. And intelligence suggests elements of the Trellan hegemony may be providing indirect support. Supplies, weapons, navigational access. No formal alliance. Plausible deniability. That stirred unease. Chen stepped forward again. With respect, members of the council, this was always the inevitable outcome of standing up to entrenched power. The galaxy we encountered is built on fear and exploitation. The moment we disrupted that system, we became a target. One council member rose sharply. You exceeded your authority, Admiral. Your mission was exploration, not unilateral war. Chen met his gaze without blinking. My mission was to represent humanity, and when innocent lives were being erased, I made the only decision that allowed me to still call myself human. Another voice cut in. You've put our entire species on a collision course with multiple interstellar powers. Chen nodded slowly. Yes, because neutrality in the face of slavery is not peace. It is permission. The room erupted into overlapping argument. Some praised her, others condemned her. Fear and pride battled in equal measure across the tiered chamber. Chairman Okafor struck the gavel. Enough. The question before us is not philosophical. It is operational. Can we defend Arcturus Station? All eyes turned to Admiral Harrison. Against 250 hostile ships, he said grimly, not with local defenses alone. The chamber grew colder. Chairman Okafor looked at Chen. Your assessment, Admiral. Chen stepped into the center of the chamber. 7 ships cannot hold Arcturus, she said. But we do not have only 7 ships. We have the entire United Earth Navy. If you authorize full mobilization, every dreadnought, every carrier, every destroyer and frigate, then yes, we can win. At what cost? Someone asked. Chen did not hesitate. Lives, ships, blood. War is never cheap, but I know the cost of surrender. She scanned the faces of the council. If we abandon Arcturus, if we retreat now, we send a message to every pirate, slaver, and tyrant in the galaxy. Humanity can be pushed. After that, no colony will ever be safe. We will spend the next century reacting instead of standing. Silence. Then, slowly, Chairman Okafor rose. All those in favor of mobilization, he said, stand. One by one, representatives rose from their seats. Not all of them, but enough. The decision was made. Humanity would not retreat. Humanity would fight. Across human space, the mobilization order ignited like a planetary heartbeat. Shipyards worked without pause. Crews were recalled from distant patrols. Reserve squadrons activated. Power grids surged as war production soared beyond anything seen since the Proxima Wars. From Earth's orbital rings to the frontier depots near deep space, the message flashed across encrypted channels. Prepare for war. Admiral Chen returned to the Indomitable with sealed orders in hand. The 3rd Expeditionary Force would serve as the vanguard, the shield against the coming storm. Weeks later, space itself seemed to buckle under the weight of humanity's response. Above Arcturus Station, the largest fleet ever assembled by human hands took shape. Dreadnoughts formed the core, massive, bristling titans whose hulls were layered in armor thick enough to shrug off sustained bombardment. Carriers loomed like dark continents, their bays already humming with fighter wings preparing for launch. Destroyers and frigates formed interlocking rings of firepower, while support vessels moved silently among them like nervous medics before an execution. 300 warships. Humanity was no longer pretending to be small. From the inner system, escorted under maximum protection, 3 Valoran vessels arrived to observe. Choir Master Velnara had insisted on seeing what the species who saved her people would do when faced with extinction. Admiral Chen watched the enemy fleet begin to emerge on long-range sensors. Hundreds of signatures. Keisha had come in force, and this time there would be no misunderstanding. Arcturus Station hung at the heart of the system like a steel sun, vast, radiant with the glow of industry and human life. Millions lived within its spinning habitats. Thousands more worked its shipyards, unaware that the greatest storm humanity had ever faced was already accelerating toward them at impossible speed. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the galaxy bend. Long-range sensors screamed as hundreds of faster-than-light exit signatures erupted across the outer perimeter of the system. Space fractured into cascading ripples of distorted light. Then the enemy arrived. First came the Thari. 200 raider vessels burst into real space in violent disarray, their hulls marked by tribal insignia and kill glyphs carved into scorched plating. Engines flared like wounded stars as they surged forward in a massive, uneven tide. Behind them came the mercenaries, 50 warships of mixed design, angular, brutal, scarred by decades of sold violence. And trailing at the outer edge, just far enough to deny direct involvement, 5 colossal Trellin warships emerged in silent observation. "They brought everything," Commander Hayes said quietly. "They always do when they think they're facing prey," Chen replied. Across the human battle network, 300 warships shifted into pre-calculated defensive formations. Fighters launched in disciplined waves, thousands of small silhouettes streaking outward like a living storm. Defense platforms around Arcturus Station rotated to full combat orientation, their massive weapon arrays tracking the approaching enemy swarm. "All ships," Chen said, her voice echoing across the fleet. "This is Admiral Chen. The enemy is entering effective weapons range. This is not a drill. Today we do not retreat. Today we decide who owns the stars." The Zathari broadcast their own challenge. Warlord Keisha's snarling image filled multiple tactical feeds. "We come for blood," Keisha roared, "for humiliation repaid in screams. Burn their station, kill their young, break their myth." The pirate fleet surged forward in raw, uncontrolled fury. "They're charging without coordination," Hayes observed. "Because Keisha believes numbers replace discipline," Chen said. "He's about to be educated." "Firing solution Alpha is ready," Park reported. Chen waited. The enemy crossed the final range threshold. "Fire." The human fleet answered with annihilation. Railguns thundered across space in perfect, overlapping cadence. Each tungsten slug struck with planetary-scale force, punching through Zathari hulls as if they were forged from paper instead of armor. Plasma lances speared outward in blinding arcs, carving molten paths through hostile formations. Missile pods released storms of guided warheads that adjusted course in real time, weaving through point defense grids like living creatures. In the opening salvo, 25 Zathari ships vanished. Not disabled, erased. The pirate charge faltered for the briefest instant as shock rippled through their ranks. Then pride and rage drove them onward. "They're still coming," Park said. "So are we," Chen replied. "Launch all fighter wings." Thousands of human fighters surged from carrier bays, their engines igniting space into violent flame. They plunged into the enemy fleet like a tidal wave of steel. Commander Rodriguez led Alpha Squadron directly into the densest cluster of hostile vessels. Enemy fire lit her cockpit in strobes of deadly color as she banked hard, missiles cascading from her pylons. "Alpha Squadron, scatter and hunt," she ordered. "No mercy, no hesitation." Zathari ships died in swarms beneath coordinated fighter strikes. Engines failed, bridge sections vanished. Internal detonations ripped vessels apart from within. Human pilots moved with surgical brutality, striking vital systems with lethal precision. The mercenaries hesitated. They had expected a difficult battle. They had not expected extinction. "They're breaking formation," Hayes reported. "Mercenary elements are pulling back." "Let them run," Chen said coldly. "The Zathari won't." The heart of the enemy formation slammed into the human defensive ring. Energy beams hammered human shields. Missiles detonated against layered armor. Space became a furnace of overlapping explosions and warping light. "Shields down to 87% on the Indomitable," Park announced. "Multiple destroyers taking sustained fire." On the forward perimeter, the destroyer Striker took a direct hit from concentrated Zathari plasma fire. Its port side vanished in a blast of white light. The ship lurched violently but did not die. Striker reports heavy damage but still operational, Hayes said. Casualties unknown. Chen clenched her jaw. This was no longer a perfect war. Losses were coming. Keisha saw his opening. All ships concentrate fire on the human flagship, he roared. Break their head and the body dies. 30 Zathari vessels turned as one and unleashed everything they had at the Indomitable. The dreadnought vanished behind a wall of converging light. The deck beneath Chen's feet shook violently. Consoles flared red. Alarms screamed. Shields collapsing, 70% and falling, Park shouted. Structural integrity holding, engineering reported. Multiple outer hull impacts. Primary systems stable. For now, Chen did not move. Return fire, she said. The Indomitable answered like a god of war awakened. Its main railgun fired 4 times in rapid succession. 4 Zathari ships ceased to exist. Its plasma batteries swept across the enemy formation in controlled arcs of stellar fury. Missile pods emptied entire magazines into the densest pockets of resistance. The concentrated assault shattered Keisha's attack wave. Zathari ships began to die faster than they could advance. They're retreating, Hayes said. Good, Chen replied. Cut off their escape. Human destroyer squadrons surged forward on full burn, slicing through the chaotic withdrawal. Fighters pursued fleeing raiders, disabling engines and weapons with merciless efficiency. The mercenaries broke completely. One by one, they transmitted surrender codes, pleading ignorance, deception, desperation. Some attempted to flee the system entirely. They did not all succeed. Of the 50 mercenary ships, only 12 escaped. The Trellin vessels watched from afar, then turned away in silent retreat. Keisha remained. His flagship, monstrous and brutal, fought its way deeper into the battlefield through sheer rage and concentrated fire. He screamed orders at dying subordinates. He hurled threats at unanswering comms. He watched his empire collapse around him. All power to forward weapons, Keisha roared. I will kill their leader myself. His flagship lunged toward the Indomitable. Admiral, Hayes warned, he's coming straight at us. Let him, Chen said. Keisha fired everything he had. The Indomitable's shields collapsed to 40%, then 30%. The ship shook under relentless impact. Deck plating buckled. Fires broke out along secondary corridors. Crew members were thrown from their stations as shock waves tore through internal structure. Shields at 20%, Park yelled. Chen remained standing. Target his reactor. The Indomitable's railgun fired one last time. The tungsten slug struck Keisha's flagship amidships. For a fraction of a second, the Zathari warlord existed. Then his reactor went critical. The explosion consumed his flagship in a sun-bright inferno that outshone the system's primary star. The remaining Zathari fleet collapsed. Those that could flee did so in blind panic. Those that could not were hunted down. Within the hour, the battle was finished. Of the 200 Zathari vessels, 164 were destroyed, 23 were captured, 13 escaped by the skin of broken reality. Human losses were real. 7 ships crippled, 3 destroyed, 342 wounded, 87 dead. Chen stood in silence as casualty reports scrolled across her command display. Victory had a weight. Open all frequencies, she said at last. Maximum power. Her image flooded into countless systems, stations, and worlds across the surrounding regions of space. This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet, she said. Today the Zathari came to punish humanity for defending innocent civilians. They brought pirates, mercenaries, and the threat of empires. She paused. They failed. Silence swallowed the battlefield. Let this message be known across the stars, Chen continued. Humanity will defend the innocent. Humanity will stand against slavery and tyranny. We did not come to the stars to prey on the weak. Her gaze hardened. We came to build something better. The battlefield of Arcturus drifted in slow, burning silence. Wreckage from hundreds of shattered ships formed glittering clouds of twisted alloy and frozen fire. Escape pods tumbled through the void, some broadcasting surrender codes in frantic bursts, others already dark and lifeless. Human recovery teams moved methodically among the debris fields, rescuing survivors, securing prisoners, and marking the dead. Victory had come, but it had not come clean. Admiral Chen stood alone on the bridge of the Indomitable, the roar of battle replaced by the quiet hum of damaged systems struggling back into equilibrium. Casualty projections scrolled endlessly across her command display, numbers that could never fully represent the weight behind them. 87 dead, 3 ships lost, hundreds wounded. Each figure was a name, a voice, a family somewhere on Earth who would soon receive a message that would change their lives forever. Commander Hayes approached her in silence and stood beside her. "It's over," Hayes said softly. "For today," Chen replied. In the inner system, Arcturus Station still stood. Entire residential sectors had gone dark during the height of the fighting. Civilian evacuation bunkers were packed wall to wall. Emergency teams moved through shattered docking bays and scorched habitation rings, pulling survivors from collapsed structures. The enemy had not reached the population centers. Humanity had held. Across secure channels, Choirmaster Velnara watched the aftermath from the bridge of the Harmonious Dawn. The Valoran delegation had witnessed everything. The overwhelming arrival of the Zathari, the impossible firepower of humanity, the terrible cost paid in blood and steel. "We have never seen such destruction," Velnara said quietly to Lieutenant Webb as he relayed data. "Nor such defiance." "It wasn't defiance," Webb answered. "It was defense." Velnara's scales shifted in slow, trembling patterns of awe and sorrow. "In our history, the two have never been the same thing." On Trell Prime, capital of the Trellan hegemony, the emergency council chamber stood locked in furious debate. "They slaughtered a full Zathari armada," one warlord general growled, "with minimal losses." "They did what we chose not to," another countered. "They enforced a rule we abandoned long ago." Grand Marshal Korv slammed his armored fist into the obsidian table. "They defied the natural order. The strong rule, the weak perish." A Trellan diplomat rose slowly. "Then explain why the weak are still alive, and the Zathari warlords are dust." Silence followed. For the first time in 2,000 years, the Trellan could not define the galaxy by their rules alone. And that terrified them. On the Morphidian homeworld, Emperor Zathor watched the final combat feeds with unrestrained fascination. "Rail kinetics surpass our best energy systems," he murmured, tentacles coiling with excitement. "AI-coordinated fleet combat at this scale. Exquisite." His advisor hesitated. "Should we prepare defensive measures?" Zathor waved the concern aside. "Prepare trade offers. These humans are not monsters. They are builders who fight only when forced." He leaned closer to the projection. "And builders make excellent partners." In the vast computational depths of the crystalline collective, 1 trillion calculations rewrote themselves in cascading failure. Every long-term model that assumed the galaxy would remain governed by predation collapsed. A new variable had entered the system, one that introduced protection where only exploitation had previously existed. The conclusion was unavoidable. The humans were destabilizing, and therefore inevitable. Back on Earth, the United Earth Council reconvened in emergency session. The victory broadcast from Arcturus had already reached every major media network on the planet. Humans watched in stunned silence as footage of railgun impacts, exploding pirate fleets, and the burning death of Warlord Keisha's flagship filled global airwaves. Humanity was no longer hidden among the stars. Humanity had announced itself in fire. Chairman Okafor addressed the chamber. "We won," he said, "but the consequences of this victory will last generations. The galaxy now knows our name." "And our values," one counselor added. Admiral Chen stood before them once more. "The powers that tolerated slavery and piracy will not welcome us," she said. "Some will attempt diplomacy, others will prepare for war, but none will ever again believe that humanity can be ignored.
And if they unite against us?
Someone asked.
Chen met his gaze without hesitation.
Then we will stand against them, together.
Days later, after the wounded had been evacuated and the dead honored,
Admiral Chen returned to the observation deck of the Indomitable. Outside the viewport, Arcturus Station burned with restored light. The human fleet remained on high alert, a wall of silent guardians between the inner system and the dark beyond.
Lieutenant Webb approached her quietly.
"The galactic comnet has exploded," he said. "Your message has been rebroadcast across hundreds of systems. Some are calling you a liberator. Others are calling you a destabilizing warlord."
Chen almost smiled.
"Good. It means they're paying attention."
Webb hesitated.
"Choir Master Velnara asked me to give you this."
He handed Chen a slender Valoran data crystal.
Inside it was a single harmonic recording, a choir of alien voices singing not in celebration, but in remembrance. 17 notes carried for 17 lives lost aboard the harmonious dawn.
Chen closed her eyes as the sound filled the chamber. When it ended, she exhaled slowly.
"They will rebuild," Webb said.
"So will we," Chen replied.
That same day, Admiral Chen ordered a final transmission. The signal was broadcast on every known trade frequency, every diplomatic channel, every pirate relay and hidden mercenary band. Every corner of the reachable galaxy heard it.
Her image appeared once more across countless worlds.
"This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet," she said. "The Zdari came seeking vengeance. They brought pirates, mercenaries, and the belief that terror is power."
She paused,
letting the silence stretch.
"They were wrong."
Her gaze was steady, unyielding.
"Let this be understood clearly.
Humanity will defend the innocent. Humanity will stand against slavery. Humanity will oppose tyranny wherever it hides."
Another pause.
"We do not ask permission to do what is right."
The transmission ended.
In the weeks that followed, the galaxy shifted. Pirate activity collapsed across 3 sectors as raiding fleets vanished into hiding. Slave routes went silent. Mercenary guilds rewrote their threat assessments with trembling caution. For the first time in centuries, weak worlds dared to hope,
and strong empires began to fear.
On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Chen watched the stars drift by once more as the fleet held its vigilant orbit.
The war was over.
The era had just begun. Humanity had not come to the stars to prey on the weak.
Humanity had come to change the rules.
And the galaxy would never be the same again.